Let's talk about how Pablo Picasso stole African art. So although Picasso denied being influenced by African art, he got his inspiration for Cubism after viewing traditional sculptures of the Makonde people of North Tanzania. In fact, he often readapted the works of anonymous African artists.
A lot of the biggest designs have been stolen from African tribes. Here are some of the examples. The famous Versace Greco print was stolen from the Funban tribes in Cameroon, and even the LV monogram with the famous sign inside was stolen from the Kwele tribe.
Not what we think, but if you read what the Greeks said they got everything from Egypt. They got all their knowledge from Egypt. Pythagoras spent 15 years in Egypt. And
one of the shocking things that dishonest European historians and writers did is that in order to cover up the ancient Egyptians, they first tried to say that the Egyptians who built the pyramids were light-skinned people.
Have you heard of the Rosetta Stone? It's one of the most precious artifacts of all time, the first clue to understanding ancient Egyptian scripts. It led to the discovery of at least 3 writing systems.
Let's talk about how Pablo Picasso stole African art. So although Picasso denied being influenced by African art, he got his inspiration for Cubism after viewing traditional sculptures of the Makonde people of North Tanzania. In fact, he often readapted the works of anonymous African artists. Now granted, whether it was cultural theft or inspiration is debatable, but I personally believe that influence without credit is theft. You see, in the early 1900s, Pablo Picasso said, "L'art nègre, connais pas," but he was actually an avid collector of African art. Perhaps he denied its existence due to political or patriotic reasons, but regardless, it still meant that African art was not given the credit it deserved. And what's crazier is that there was actually a period of time in his career where he straight up painted African artifacts. 2 of the ladies in Les Demoiselles d'Avignon were inspired by masks of the Dan tribe in Ivory Coast, and Nude with Raised Arms was influenced by a figure from the Kotsa or Bakotsa culture in northeastern Gabon. In fact, the Makonde had been carving geometric sculptures of intertwined bodies and faces for hundreds of years. Yet it was Picasso and Braque, 2 European artists, who were credited with inventing Cubism and 20th century abstract art. African artists received little to no recognition for doing the same kind of work inspired by their own culture. Ironically, and perhaps maddeningly, Picasso was seen as a boundary-pushing artist when in Africa, artists had been pushing those boundaries. I will say this though, there is small comfort in knowing that although Picasso was and is hailed as a genius, the source of his innovation came from the home of what they called the savages.
This is something nobody really talks about, but a lot of the biggest designs have been stolen from African tribes. Here are some of the examples. The famous Versace Greco print was stolen from the Funban tribes in Cameroon, and even the LV monogram with the famous sign inside was stolen from the Kwele tribe. And in the LV's Man collection in 2012, you can find the Masai Shuka, which is a traditional African blanket based in colorful shades of red and blue. This one is often used in the Maasai tribes of Kenya and Tanzania. Do you know more designs that got stolen? And more importantly, should these tribes be compensated with the profits that the brands are getting? Let us know down in the comments below.
if you read what the Greeks said, not what we think, but if you read what the Greeks said they got everything from Egypt. They got all their knowledge from Egypt. Pythagoras spent 15 years in Egypt. And what did he have to do? He probably had to spend 5 years convincing them that he was worthy to get the knowledge that they had. Remember, knowledge was power. Knowledge was sacred. Knowledge was something you just didn't publish in the newspapers. Knowledge was guarded very closely because it was of tremendous value. You wouldn't give it to anybody. You would give it to somebody who was willing to shave his head and be a penitent for 5 years, and then you might start to tell him things. Okay? And the Greeks did this. Pythagoras did this. Other Greeks did this. And they said that they got all their knowledge from the Egyptians. Now, when did we come up with the idea that the Greeks created everything from scratch? Well, believe it or not, it happened in the 18th and 19th century. And it's an unfortunate fact of life that Romanticism, which has many great things about it, also has a dark side, which has to do with racism. And in the 18th and 19th century, it was decided that it was just not appropriate for all this knowledge to come from an African country. Where would that knowledge, if it survived to the time of the Roman Empire, where would it have been kept? Yes. In Alexandria, in the museum, the library at Alexandria. And what happened to the library? It was burned in a war, okay? And at that point, what happened to those books that were burned? If they were written in living languages, there was a scholar someplace who had memorized the book and could just write it down again. But if it was in a dead language, like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, end of story. Can't be reconstructed.
One of the shocking things that dishonest European historians and writers did is that in order to cover up the ancient Egyptians, they first tried to say that the Egyptians who built the pyramids were light-skinned people. Now, when you look at the dynasties, you see the Old Kingdom. This is 3000 BC. Then you see the Middle Kingdom. This is coming, around 2000. Then you see the New Kingdom, which is coming, right before AD. Right? And that is when the Romans came in and when the Greeks came in. And so when the Romans came in, you find that they imitated the Egyptians. And so Cleopatra was a title. There was a number of Cleopatras. Right. And they were actually people of European descent. So there were European people who were sitting in the thrones like the pharaohs. And much of the artifacts and mummies that you get in the museums are from the New Kingdom.
I see.
It's not from the Old Kingdom.
Right.
So it's the New Kingdom. So people get confused and they say, well, these are Egyptian things. Yes, but these are after 3,000 years had gone by of their major pyramid building, 5,000 years of their civilization. Then these people come in right at the end, right? And so that was the first lie, that they are Indo-European people. The second lie, which is even greater than that, is that they said, we cannot attribute this civilization to black African people, so we will say it was aliens who flew down on Earth,
better aliens,
built the pyramids, right, and then flew back in space. And so now you have children watching Stargate and other programs thinking, no, this pyramid couldn't be black people.
Wow.
How can they build something like that?
That's how much history they have.
Right. It's an alien who came down, subjugated the people, built the pyramid, and then flew back out in space.
Yeah, that makes more sense than black people.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
But the hardcore evidence, and that's where our young people need to study history. Don't get caught up with the story of the aliens or the story of the mutant creatures. Right? No, let us get caught up with the history of our peoples.
Right.
History of humanity, the great achievements made in Africa. And that is the reason why Carter G. Woodson and the people developed Black History Month. And that was, to highlight these achievements. And this is not to say the achievements did not happen in China, in India, in Europe, in the Americas. No. But let's take, a hidden part of history. Let's uncover a legacy. And let's give it to the world. And that is where, as a Muslim, as a person of African descent, I celebrate this time. It expands my mind, and I believe it will expand the mind of all children, not just black children. It will help white children to appreciate African Americans, African Caribbean, people from the African continent. They will appreciate that. And when they see LeBron James doing that slam dunk, they'll realize he's a scientist. And he may even be related, to the ancient Egyptians.
Stolen African artwork in a Paris museum.
Guys, I'm in a French museum, And I swear, they stole a lot of African artwork. I mean, a lot of African artwork was stolen and relocated to European museums. A lot of our stuff and our history is scattered in pieces all over the world. I mean, I got really emotional coming in here because I didn't realize how much history was actually stolen. And this is just one museum I've been in Europe.
Have you heard of the Rosetta Stone? It's one of the most precious artifacts of all time, the first clue to understanding ancient Egyptian scripts. It led to the discovery of at least 3 writing systems. This stone is as old as modern civilization, the Rosetta Stone. Then we have the Elgin marbles, a set of Greek sculptures from the 5th century. They were built to decorate Parthenon, the Temple of Athena. They're exquisite, just like the Benin bronzes. This is a collection of metal plaques. They once decorated the Kingdom of Benin. The Benin bronzes are an African treasure. They show how skilled African artists were. A house of loot. These artifacts were either stolen or won by force or acquired unfairly. Today they serve as a cruel reminder of colonial times. But the British Museum displays them with pride. It presents them as prized treasures, showing no sense of remorse for the past crimes or gratitude for the people from whom these were taken. And why just Britain? Museums across Europe are filled with such objects, with uncomfortable histories linked to colonialism. So here's a question. Do they have the right to keep displaying these objects? Hello and welcome. They say in law, a thief is not allowed to keep ill-gotten gains. No matter how long ago they were taken, they must be returned. No matter how much that thief may have improved them, they must be returned. European nations wrongfully took cultural riches. They took them from countries that are now independent states. But most of them refused to even discuss returning them. They refused to make reparations for their historical wrongs. According to the Archaeological Institute of America, 85 to 90% of classical artifacts in museums do not have a documented provenance, meaning they don't have a record of ownership or a record of origin through which museums can justify their right to possess these objects. Most of these artifacts are from Africa and Asia. In 2018, the French government commissioned a report. Guess what they found? Nearly 90% of Africa's cultural heritage is held by museums and institutions outside of Africa. Nearly 90%. France alone has 90,000 such objects, stolen objects. A majority of them can be found at the Quai Branly Museum. It's a state-of-the-art museum situated in Paris. It holds a vast collection of art, indigenous art from the 8 African colonies that France once ruled. This move has had ramifications across Europe and the US. It has opened a debate on looted artifacts, a debate to send them back to their country of origin. A few museums have decided to do this. They've ceded ground. They've begun a process of restitution, but most of the mighty museums are playing ostrich. I'm talking about the big ones, like the British Museum in London, the Louvre in Paris, the Humboldt Forum in Berlin, the Getty Center in Los Angeles, the Metropolitan in New York. They're all playing dumb. These museums have locked up the precious legacy of 1 million people, and they reject all demands to return any of it. They consider these artifacts as spoils of war, an argument that does not hold water, neither morally nor legally. International law does not allow it. You see, the concept of finders keepers does not apply anymore. There's a United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It reaffirms the right of a country to reclaim its treasures. It obliges museums to return property that was taken without free, prior and fair consent. In fact, this has been recognized by courts. In England, Ireland and the US, courts have ruled in favor of returning wrongfully acquired artifacts. They've said that other countries have sovereignty over items which they think constitute keys to their heritage. And it's not just courts who back this call. Human rights treaties also support what they call the right to culture, the right to reclaim what belongs to your culture. Take India, for instance. It was colonized for 2 centuries by the United Kingdom, and this was colonialism in its most predatory form. The British looted everyone and everything. In today's value, this loot would amount to a sum of $45 trillion. This is according to research by Columbia University Press. It says Britain drained a total of $45 trillion from India. Shouldn't the UK pay reparations for this? Forget reparations. The least it can do is return India's stolen artifacts, like the Kohinoor, one of the most precious diamonds in the world. This diamond was mined at the Kulur mine in India. It was unfairly ceded to Queen Victoria when Britain annexed Punjab in 1849. Today, it adorns Queen Elizabeth's crown. Another priceless artifact is Maharaja Ranjit Singh's throne. It's covered with sheets of engraved gold. After the Anglo-Sikh War, it was moved to the Albert Museum. It's been in Britain ever since. Just like the sandstone idol of Lord Harihara from Madhya Pradesh. This 500 kg copper Buddha from Bihar. The sword of Tipu Sultan, they're all locked up at museums in Britain. What's the UK's excuse to keep them? Their argument is incredible. Most of the museums in Britain say their only aim is to make these objects available to all so that people from all over the world can come and see them, learn more about the roots and cultures they go from. They say they keep them for the rest of the world. Do you believe this? Do you buy this argument? It's like saying that some kid from Africa can always go to Britain to learn more about her culture. Why? Because Britain is the cultural capital of the world. Capital of colonial loot, more like. As for the public service they claim to do, here's what. People from all over the world can see African art in Africa too, and Indian art in India too. In fact, the whole concept of these museums is more like a colonialist fantasy of neatly cataloguing the entire world in a single air-conditioned building so that Westerners do not have to cross continents to uncomfortable climates to see them. My point is quite simple. Artifacts belong to the countries of their origin, to places where they can best be appreciated, to people for whom they have the most meaning. So by holding on to them and displaying them for a fee, Western museums are still benefiting from their colonial legacy, still validating their historical wrongs and injustices. Their empires have crumbled, but their sense of entitlement has not.